And Meg is a wildlife biologist at the San Pablo Bay and Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuges. And the refuge supports the largest heron and egret rookery in the San Francisco Bay Area. Situated in a prime location along the Pacific Highway for migratory birds, the refuge provides submerged tidelands, mixed evergreen forest, coastal prairie, coastal salt marsh, and northern coastal scrub habitat. Meg's talk will highlight the history, both natural and cultural, of the Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuge, the species that occur on the refuge, and the management the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is conducting today to protect the native species. Meg has been a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for over 20 years. For the past 14 years, she has worked at the San Pablo Bay National Wildlife Refuge and the Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuge, two of the 7 refuges in the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge Complex. Meg is seeking stewardship volunteers for the Marin Islands, and dates that she'll be going to the Marin Islands include, well, it included today, but June 24th and 25th, as well as July 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. And in the program description in the e-newsletter, there's a link for more information on how to sign up for that. So again, we'll ask everyone to remain muted during the program, but you can put questions or comments in the chat. And at the end of the program, we'll open it up to live questions and answers. So welcome, Meg, and you can unmute yourself.
Great. Thank you so much, Kristen. And thank you so much, CNPS, for having me tonight. It's such an honor because I just love Marin Islands with all of my heart, and CNPS members over the years have been a part of coming onto the islands and identifying the flora, the native flora for us. And we have CNPS listed. Oh goodness, I'm sorry. I apologize ahead of time. I'm not going to get this right. It's in the inventory of rare and endangered plants. Is that correct? It's Piperia michaelii we have on East Marin Island. And so I'm always telling people, oh, we have a CNPS listed species on this island. So anyway, it's just really an honor to be here with you this evening and share with you about the Marin Islands. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully do this correctly. Oh no, it didn't do it correctly. Sorry about that. Let's see. Oh shoot. So we just did this. And I'm not sure what happened, but I'm sorry, you guys. Thank you.
There it is.
Thank you for bearing with me. Okay. So okay, so my presentation, as Kristen was saying, is about the Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuge tonight. And there you have a picture of the 2 islands that comprise the terrestrial portion of the refuge. And there's the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge going in the background there. So the Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuge is part of the National Wildlife Refuge System. And please forgive me if you know this. I just thought I would give a quick overview of who we are. We're the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We are the land management branch of the Fish and Wildlife Service. And so we are the stewards of the wildlife refuges, of which there are over 600 all across the country. But often friends, family, neighbors get very confused about who I am and what I do. So I like to give this overview. I am US part of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, National Wildlife Refuge system, but we are not the National Park Service. Although we have very similar missions, the National Wildlife Refuge System actually has more acreage in the United States. And whereas Park Service also manages lands for wildlife, they're more people oriented. And our mission is wildlife first. And we only allow people onto the wildlife refuges as it is compatible with the wildlife. So we're not the National Park Service. We're not a California state agency. We're federal. So we're going through all the federal fears that everybody else is right now. And we're not county. And we actually don't rehab wildlife either. So we get a lot of calls asking if we can take in a sick pelican. And no, we can't. Sorry about that. So Marin Islands is one of 7 refuges around the San Francisco Bay. We're in the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge Complex. And you've probably heard of at least one of our other refuges. It's called the Farallon Islands. But we do go all the way up north to San Pablo National Wildlife Refuge and all the way down south to Monterey to the Salinas River Refuge. But here you're seeing a map of the Marin Islands National Wildlife Refuge. And right in the middle of the map, you see East Marin Island, and over to the west is smaller West Marin Island. So the actual refuge is everything that's within the red line, and it's a 340-acre refuge located in San Rafael Bay in Marin County. And it's comprised of 2 terrestrial islands, the East Marin Island there, and which is 10.28 acres, and the West Marin Island, which is 2.8 acres. And I am embarrassed, Kristen, but I never asked how much time I have. So I better ask you.
Pretty much as long as you like. Generally, within reason. Speakers usually run about 45 minutes with about 15 for Q&A afterwards.
Okay, fantastic.
So roughly an hour altogether, but we're flexible.
Okay, great. I didn't want to go over time because I can get really, really into what I'm talking about the Marin Islands because I love them so much. So in this picture, I'm actually standing on East Marin Island, and it's the larger of the 2, and I'm looking directly at West Marin Island. And this refuge is, like I say, I believe a jewel of the Bay Area. In the 10 acres of the East Island, we have, and I'll probably mention some points several times, but we have 7 distinct habitat types just in 10 acres. We have approximately 100 native plant species on just 10 acres. And that represents about 10% of Marin County flora. So you have submerged wetlands transitioning into rocky intertidal, transitioning into oak woodlands, which you can see here, transitioning into coastal grasslands, then going into coastal scrub habitat, down into cliff bluff habitat with lots of succulents, dudleya. And then we go down on the south side and it's tidal marsh beach habitat. And then that goes back out to rocky intertidal and submerged mud flats. And that's all in 10 acres. I mean, it's magical. So that is also another picture down on the bottom there of Marin Islands with Mount Tam in the back. That's one of my favorite views. And I just thought I'd start off telling you all a little bit about the refuge. It was established in 1992 as the 479th National Wildlife Refuge in the system. And it was established by an act of Congress in April of 1992 to provide wintering habitat for migratory birds and nesting habitat specifically for the heron and egret rookery, which in its heyday boasted over 800 nests. And the rookery was on that little West Marin Island. So it was about 2.5 acres with 800 nests, about 1,600 herons and egrets coming and going on 2 acres. It was pretty magnificent. But I must say that over the past 10, maybe 10 plus years, the rookery has declined and it has crashed. We have partnered with Audubon Canyon Ranch since the late 70s to monitor the rookery. And so they monitor or keep track of all of the rookery, maybe a greater area too. They say that the numbers have not gone down. So the different rookeries come and go, they blink in and blink out, but the overall number of birds does not decrease in the Bay Area. They just keep moving around. And last year, for the first time ever, we had a pair of bald eagles nest on East Marin Islands. And one adult, they fledged one young. One adult stayed the whole year, and they're back at it again this year nesting. And there's a chickie pie who's perching on the rim of the nest today. So it's very exciting. But it also is a possible reason for why the rookery decided to, or the herons and egrets decided to move on, because bald eagles have been colonizing the Bay Area for the last 10 years or so. Okay, so anyway, getting back to the purpose for the refuge, it was established for wintering habitat for migratory birds, and also for the development, advancement, management, conservation, and protection of all fish and wildlife resources on the refuges. So our primary trust resources, and I've already spoken about both of them a bit, are the migratory nesting birds and wintering birds. And we have full species lists of everything that we know of that's on or has passed through the island. But I'm really excited, and I'd love to talk more with you all about getting a bio blitz going on at Marin Island to record all of the different species. Doreen Smith identified and recorded almost, as it says here, 100 native species of plant. But I often see one that's not on the list, and I think, oh, it's time for a bio blitz with CNPS and Audubon and a few other interested parties. So here is a picture on the west side of East Island, and it's kind of a fun and sad picture to show to you all, because most of the species that you're looking at are non-native. We have the prickly pear, opuntia there front and center, although beautiful buckeye tree off the side of the island. But those lily-like plants in a row on the right side, those are naked ladies. So we do have at least 100 non-native species in addition to the 100 or so native species. And the as they are everywhere in the Bay Area, the non-native species are really they're really causing damage. They're choking out our invasive species, and most of what we do at Marin Islands is managed for non-native invasive species. We have identified a top priority list of about 20, and I'm sure that you guys are very familiar with all 20. um, and we go out and we do what we can. We engage contractors, partners, other refuge staff, and as Kristen was mentioning, we're starting to develop a volunteer program as things get a little bit rocky in the Fish and Wildlife Service, and we're unsure of how resources are going to be restructured um, in the next year or so within the Fish and Wildlife Service. We're anticipating that some of the refuges, we may have to pull back from them a bit, and Marin Islands, unfortunately, very unfortunately, is one of those that we may have to step back from. So I do have a bit of agenda this evening. I wanted to talk to you guys because I wanted to get you very excited to come take a tour and see if you would like to be a volunteer too at Marin Islands. I think the islands can be run by volunteers. I have developed weed management plans, and Peter Bay developed a full vegetation management plan back in the early 2000s that we reference. And so it's all laid out, and we just need bodies and people who are interested in the islands, wildlife refuge, flora, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So here is a view standing on top of East Marin Islands. This is approximately where the bald eagle nest now is. And over the past 7 years, we've had a significant change happen after the mega drought that we went through, prior to 2002 or something like that. Much of the vegetation got stressed out. And we have approximately 200 non-native Monterey pine trees on the refuge that you can see right here. And you can see some eucalyptus as well, both non-native, both planted by the previous landowner. And I'll get a little bit into the history of the land in just a second. But the pines were nearing their lifespan. I think they're usually expected to live about 100 years, and it was getting close to that time anyway. They were super stressed due to the drought, and we had a major infestation of bark beetle, which killed off all of the pine trees, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it really opened up the canopy on the island. And the next few years we had rain, the series of rain and warm weather, and the weeds have exploded, and the natives have exploded, and they're competing rigorously. But when you come onto the islands, it will look a little bit different than this. This is a great transition into telling you just a little bit about the cultural history of the islands. You can see in the forefront, along with the blue dix and lupin and California sage, on the substrate, there are a bunch of little white shell fragments. And that is a shell midden, which I think of as a indigenous or Native American trash mound. The indigenous Miwok people used Marin Islands, we believe, as kind of a retreat. There's no running water there, so our archaeologists don't believe that anybody lived on the islands, but probably used it, kind of as a summer retreat or year-round retreat, maybe, and had clam bakes and did other activities on the top of the island. We've found remains, some tools, and actually skeletal remains, which were dated about 2,000 years. Designated as a sacred site for this reason by the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria, or Figure. And it's believed that Chief Marin himself hid out on East Marin Islands when he was escaping from the San Francisco mission. Gosh, you know what? I do not have that year, and I'm never going to be able to pull it out of my brain, so I won't even try. But Chief Marin is rumored to have hidden out on the islands. The islands themselves transferred land ownership just as California did, the Spanish and then Mexican ownership and then California ownership. And in the 1800s, the government used the islands as a navigation site to kind of triangulation station to kind of new San Francisco Bay. And then Mr. Brown, in the late 1800s, I do not know if he took ownership or if it was legally passed into his hands, but he began building a couple buildings on the side of East Marin Islands. And then in 1920s, the islands went up for auction, and the Crowley family, who are very popular in San Francisco Bay history and in San Francisco Bay now, I believe they established the Red and White Fleet. They bought the islands, and they were originally planning to serve as a foothold for the Richmond-San Rafael Bridge, but the bridge got rerouted, and the Crowley family kept the islands as a summer retreat. And so there were, up until 2019, there were two buildings, a main building and a guest house on the islands, but we took them down because they were becoming attractive nuisances. People were going and making fires in the houses and using them as target practice. People were having paintball wars in the houses, and one of the houses was actually even collapsing. So it was time for them to come down. So there are no current buildings on or structures on the islands today. And then in the 80s, the Crowley family decided to sell the islands, and Marin County Audubon organizations, groups, conservationists of all kinds, individuals around the bay to save Marin Islands because they recognized what a terribly important site this was for the rookery and what a gem it was because of the native Marin County flora. And so they were able to fundraise and buy these islands and transfer them to Fish and Wildlife Service, and also California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So this is actually a National Wildlife Refuge and a California State Ecological Reserve, but under a memorandum of understanding, the refuge manages the entire site. So that's just a little bit of history. I was telling you about how I get excited to tell folks that we have a CNPS listed plant here. We have many, oh, they're not rare, but many populations of plants that are special because they're maybe like at the southmost boundary of, where the plant has been recorded, or, that has another special designation. The Michael's rain orchid here in the middle is just I don't know if CNPS lists it quite as rare, but it's not a very common species. And so that occurs pretty densely on the East Island. And as far as I know, as far as I've been able to ascertain, this is the only location known where these three species of orchid, the Piperia elongata, Michaelii, and transversa, occur together. So it's pretty special. And the orchids are blooming right now and will be blooming through July, if anybody is interested. As I was mentioning, the single biggest threat to the refuge is our native, or whoa, oh my goodness, invasive plants. We are concerned about sea level rise. We are trespassed upon quite regularly. Phytophthora has never, knock on wood, oh my God, been introduced onto the island. So our oaks and our bays are doing wonderfully, but we do have quite a bit of trespassing and vandalism. But still, the biggest threat to the system is invasive plants. And we work with others, as I mentioned before, and these pictures are showing members of Basque Bay Area sea kayakers coming out with me to manage the weeds. So volunteers are critical to maintaining the islands, and we couldn't do it without everybody. So I think I could just blab on and on and on, but I think what I would like to do, if it's all right with you, is stop there and take questions and maybe talk about our volunteer stewardship program that I'm trying to develop right now, and talk to you all, see if anybody would be interested or has any ideas, maybe brainstorm with me about how to get bodies on the island to combat these invasive species.
So thank you so much, Meg. First,
Sure.
first off, there are a few questions in the chat, so maybe we could address those first. Julie Whitman asks, how many species make up the rookery? But you said the rookery had collapsed now, right?
The rookery has collapsed, but when it was in full swing, we had 4 species. They were the great blue heron, black-crowned night heron, great egret, and snowy egret. As the rookery collapsed, we had all but the blue herons leave, and the blue herons went over to the East Island and were nesting. We had about 7 pairs of great blues nesting on the East Island, and then
And Andrea Williamson says she would love to volunteer, so we have
yes.
And Karen Cotter asks if the vegetation management plan could be shared with
Absolutely.
us, maybe as a PDF.
Yes, I will. Let's see, I don't have a pen here, but especially if you remind me, I will share that with you. That was written, as I was mentioning, by Peter Bay in 2004, I believe, and it's really more complexes and all of the different plants. And so I am sure that CNPS members would enjoy that.
Great. So yeah, maybe a link to that could be put in a future e-bulletin, or
Yes.
we'll find out a way to share that.
Okay.
Or maybe, yeah, we'll talk about that. And how far away is Patrick Island? Jeffrey Perrone asks, and does that have any wildlife value?
I'm so sorry. I have never even heard of Patrick Island. I know that there are about 50 islands in San Francisco Bay, and I'm so refuge centric that I tend to stay in my refuge box. And so I'm really sorry I can't address that question. But I'm going to look that up on my Google Maps when I get off the call.
And Julie asks, do the volunteers disturb the nesting birds?
That's a really good question. We The answer is yes, inevitably. We do, but we have best management practices and minimization measures in place so as to minimize the risk of disturbance. Right now, per the Bald Eagle Protection Act, we are not allowed to go within a 330-foot buffer of the eagle nest. And though that doesn't sound like a very big area, because this island is only 10 acres, it excludes about 4/5 of the refuge, the East Marin Island from access. It restricts access to that 4/5. So we're just working in 1/5 of the island right now. And then after August 15th, after the eagles go, after the Migratory Bird Treaty Act period is passed, then we go on into the rest of the refuge and control species like French broom and acacia and pride of Madeira and all of the good ones that you guys love so much.
And how long have you been working on the invasive plants? Karen Cotter asks, and are you replanting or restoring yet?
So such an awesome question. I don't know if you all have heard of Giselle Block. She was my predecessor, the wildlife biologist before me at Marin Islands. I just had her visit. She's interested in becoming a volunteer steward. or crew leader. And we were just discussing the transplanting of oak seedlings, and I would love to talk to you all about what you think should be done. I've been controlling weeds personally out there for 14 years, and Giselle before me for 10. So at least 25 years of weed management, but it really needs intensive weed management. And to reduce the seed bank. And then we have tried planting some native grasses, purple needlegrass, and so Nacella and Elamis. And we've done some buckeye planting. But what Giselle and I were just talking about is now that the pine trees are gone, we don't know what this island looked like historically, but just judging by the West Island, the little one, which is not or never has been inhabited by humans, and it has really rocky shorelines, so it's very difficult to access. So people just don't go on it. And the buckeyes and the trees go all the way up to the top of the island. On East Marin, the oak woodland is only on the north side slopes. But Giselle and I have just been talking about recently, well, maybe we should start transplanting some of the baby oak seedlings and planting some buckeye seeds all the way up to the top of the East Marin Island. Any plant experts who can come brainstorm with me, I would just love it to see what you all think should be done out there.
And Jenny Puckraduni says she would love to volunteer and she has a kayak.
Yes, yes. We'll take anytime.
Renee Voss asks, how do we sign up to volunteer?
Oh, that's why I haven't
Do you want to put
sharing.
anything, or should people just contact you directly?
Yeah.
Your number and email are on the screen there.
Yes, people are welcome to contact me directly, and I will get you on a list. And as Kristen was mentioning, we're going out on the 24th and possibly 25th of this month, and then 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of July.
And how are people transported?
Yeah, so I'm still allowed to go out to the island and work, but as our staff is being cut, we're having to really concentrate on the big refuges, San Pablo Bay and Don Edwards. And so I may be pulled from working on the island. And the reason why I say that is for right now, while I'm going out there, I have a little 13-foot whaler, and I'm so happy to bring anybody who wants to come with me on the boat. But if I am pulled off the island, it will just be by kayak. Unless anybody has a boat and wants to assume responsibility for other volunteers and drive them out in their boat, we could definitely discuss that.
Great. Did raccoons destroy the rookery? Alice Chasm asks.
Alice is such a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. So just super briefly, it was coincidentally the decline in the rookery coincided with the development of the Loch Lomond Marina and the condos there, and Andy's Market, which was moved right by the water, and the big trash bins that were placed right behind Andy's Market. And a lot of the boat owners were complaining about the raccoon population going way up after, about 2015. So we did put game cameras on the Big Island, and we saw that we had raccoons, which we never knew we had until that point. And so my guess is that they're swimming out there. And my guess is that along with the increased population on the mainland, by Andy's Market, we have an increased population on East Island. And I do believe it is one of the reasons, but I just don't know if it's the reason.
Okay. And Jeffrey Perrone very kindly posted the information from our e-bulletin that has the link to volunteer.
Wonderful.
And your contact info.
Great.
And Vernon and Doreen Smith.
Oh, Doreen.
Comment. Doreen says it brings back memories for her. She enjoyed visiting Ireland, I think. And Eva Buxton, she's been our invasive plant chair on the board. Many years ago, sweet fennel was a dominant invasive plant. Is it still?
Was it a dominant invasive?
Has it been reduced?
Yes. Yeah. So we just have a plant here and a plant there. I cut some stalks today. But honestly, I think I've seen 3 distinct plants on the island all year. So I did not know that it was once a dominant invasive. That makes me really happy that Giselle probably controlled that pretty well.
And is French broom a problem on the island?
It's a huge problem. And it's probably the worst problem. And we have decided we used to try and get rid of all of it. But because of our funding situation, the only way we are able to hire contractors who can actually rappel on the sides of the cliff sides to get the French broom, it requires money to hire them. And we can only get them, here and there. And in the in between years, the French broom comes back. So we've decided to just control the French broom where it is accessible for staff, volunteers, everybody, meaning you don't have to rappel. So basically on the top of the island. And we've had Solitude come in the last 3 years. They've cut and then retreated all of the French broom seedlings from all across the top of the island.
Okay.
But they're still coming up.
Are there jays on the islands that can spread oaks by burying acorns?
Oh, that is a great question. I don't know that I've ever seen a jay, and so I've never seen one obviously burying an acorn. Yeah, but there are in the oak woodlands, there are, just thousands of little oak seedlings coming up, and it's ripe for transplanting, I think.
Yeah, they do produce a taproot very quickly.
Yes.
So it's not
so
easy to transplant them. I mean, it might be just as fast and simpler to plant acorns.
Plant the acorns.
Yeah. And you don't have deer on the island, do you?
No, we don't.
Okay. All right. So there shouldn't be major browse problems with
right.
ones.
And this is why I need y'all out to help me.
And is revision of the MOU with DFW a possibility and transfer of responsibility to them?
That's such a good question. They are right now, and have been for quite some time, even more strapped than we are. And so we wind up, when I say we, I mean the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Refuge system winds up managing a lot of their, not a lot of their properties, but a significant portion of their properties that are adjacent to us because they just do not have the staff or resources to manage these properties.
Okay. Well, does anyone wish to unmute and ask any questions in person? Looks like we've run out of questions.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much, and have my
Thank you,
number
Meg.
there. Please contact me anytime, even just to say hello, even if you don't want to come out. Love to hear from you.
Thank you. This was great. And is there a plant list for the one that Doreen compiled?
Yes. Yeah, there is a plant list, and it is in Peter Bay's vegetation management plan.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, then I think we have wound up. Other people just thanking for the program.
You're
And
welcome.
I wanted to say that next month we have last month we had a program about a seed program, and we have another one that's run by this state CNPS staff, and Carolyn Martorano from State CNPS will be talking about that program. And I believe that is a seed banking program more than planting program at this point. But we will learn more. So thank you all for attending, and hope to see you next month. Thank you again, Meg. Bye-bye.